Hi, y'all. Welcome back to the Shifting Schools podcast. My name is Trisha Friedman, and I'm in the recording studio by myself this week. Jeff is yet again away on the road delivering more high-quality professional development. He's going to be super bummed that he missed this week's conversation because we're talking about one of his favorite topics, creativity. We're not just talking about it, we're also exploring an opportunity to engage it. This week's episode takes a deep dive into the upcoming Crayola Creativity Week, which is happening January 27th through to February 2nd. The event is free. You can go ahead and register right now. And again, our special guest is going to talk a little bit about how and why you're going to want to do that. On the show this week, we are speaking with Cheri Sterman, who's a nationally recognized leader in child development and education. She's also a passionate advocate of creativity and the influence it has on a child's future potential. Cheri most recently helped Crayola launch its advocacy initiative, Campaign for Creativity, which challenges conventional perceptions on what creativity is. She aims to spark a new dialogue about the value of creativity and to help parents and caregivers incorporate more creative moments into their child's life. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about how we do that, how we encourage families, classrooms, and ourselves to embed more creative moments in our lives, and how actually getting signed up for and engaging with Crayola Creativity Week might be useful for doing that. We also talk about some of the other ways that Crayola is a real asset to us in education. So I hope you enjoy this conversation.
Shifting Schools is excited to be sponsored by newlight.io. Their platform is designed to simplify MTSS frameworks for personalized student support. Built by leading experts, New Light focuses on getting educators the answers they need fast. Which students need which levels of support? With simple data collection and insightful analytics powered by AI, New Light's platform provides actionable solutions to support your students effectively. Try it for free at newlight.io. That's NEULIGHT.io. Check the link in the show notes to learn more.
I know it has me thinking about my goals for 2025 and what I want to do to really set myself up to have a super creative calendar year. So please welcome to the show, Cheri Sterman. Thank you so much for being with us, Cheri. As anybody who's had anything to do with a school will know, special events can very much be sparks for creativity, for collaboration. CCW, or Crayola Creativity Week, looks like it's going to do both and maybe even a little bit more. Can you take us through what that week looks like and what an educator who's listening and learning, maybe for the first time that it exists, how can they get involved?
Absolutely. So Crayola Creativity Week is a free program. I think that's the most important thing for teachers to hear right out the gate and to remember is the entire program is here for you for free. It inspires and celebrates children's creativity. It's amazing how it's grown. We will engage more than 8 million children this year from 100 countries. The program runs January 27th through February 2nd, but the time to register is now. In fact, as soon as you register, you'll receive planning resources, including a guide for celebrating creativity with your entire learning community, and then another guide, which is a resource for helping you plan a family engagement event. We know how important family engagement is, and we've got all sorts of resources and information for how to make one of those events focused on creativity. And as a special treat for yourself, when you register, you're going to get access to a really cool tool that will help you identify your personal creative style. It's a short survey. It takes about 5 minutes to do, and it really helps you understand your style. And if you do it with your colleagues, your family members, you can understand their style, which is another form of diversity and helps you really leverage that relationship to its fullest. And the main reason that teachers sign up for Crayola Creativity Week is the amazing talent and the messages they share with children. I'm going to tell you who's joining us this year, and you would not believe the lineup. But I just want to point out, they all donate their time because they know this program is free for teachers and families. And these celebrities believe so strongly in the power of creativity and supporting children's creative mindsets. This year, students will hear inspirational messages from Matthew McConaughey is going to kick off the week on Monday, and he'll talk about life lessons in his book, Just Because. Henry Winkler is going to talk about change and collaboration. Actor Max Greenfield will talk about conquering fears. And the beloved author of Pigeon and Piggy and Elephant, Mo Willems, is going to explain abstract thinking to kids and create abstract art with the students. And then backed by popular demand, NASA this year, every year we have spokespeople, scientists from NASA. This year, they're bringing astrobiology to the program who will explain the Europa Clipper mission that just launched and will take 5.5 years to get to Europa. They're going to talk about that search for habitability on one of Jupiter's moons. Now, this week has a really special program on the Friday afternoon. It's an exciting worldwide assembly. And this year we're being joined by Jennifer Aniston and Quinta Bronson from Abbott Elementary. We also have incredible dancers and athletes. Everyone in the assembly explains how creativity guides their career and their personal life. It's super easy to sign up right now. Just go to Crayola.com/creativity week.
That's extraordinary. What an incredible lineup. What a great opportunity. I'm wondering, Cheri, listeners of this show are not going to need to be convinced that creativity is important and that we need children working on it outside of school as well as within. And I think we're always looking to give advice and guidance to parents and caregivers who are also either who maybe not necessarily understand how to dig into creativity in a way that doesn't feel, I don't know, like pedantic, or who maybe don't even necessarily understand. Like, your lineup really speaks to creativity is important in every single industry, and it's so important to remind folks of that. What advice for you comes to mind with what you want parents and caretakers to be thinking about when they're thinking about creativity?
I am so glad that you asked that, because research confirmed what teachers have always known. Creativity is an essential life skill that helps children reach their full potential. When we did a study recently with parents, we learned that 6% of parents believe creativity is important for their individual child and for society as a whole. But we learned that a lot of parents don't feel creatively confident enough. They tell us that they aren't creative enough to nurture their children's creativity, or they lack creative confidence. So how can they nurture it in their children? So when we learned this, we realized we need to help spread the message. And we're so happy to partner with teachers on this, because teachers and caregivers have that role in communicating with parents on a regular basis. And we can all share this message of how easy and how much fun it is to nurture children's creativity. So Crayola started the campaign for creativity. There's a lot in social media now, #StayCreative, in which people are sharing their ideas around how they nurture their children's creativity. And again, we have a lot of celebrity spokespersons who tell their stories about how they nurtured their kids or how their parents nurtured them. The main message is that nurturing children's creativity, kids are young, has long-lasting effects. And it's so important for boosting kids' creative confidence and their problem-solving skills. So our advice to parents and caregivers is really simple. It's one phrase: create more creative moments. And that's really intentional. We call them creative moments because they don't have to be great, big owners projects, right? It's easy. It's a lot of fun. Our research identified some of what we call the barriers, what's holding parents back. So I mentioned confidence is one, but the other is they're afraid that they don't have time. We know that parents cannot carve out any extra time from their very busy days, right? They've got to get the kids going to school. They've got to get to work. They've got to make dinner, get the grocery shopping, do the laundry. They have very busy lives. And so the simple creative moments that we recommend don't take lots of extra time. They don't require parents to spend money on extra stuff. We really talk about weaving creative moments into daily routines, right? So it might be that you're outside, so go on a nature walk and notice the colors and shapes around you, or look up at the clouds and imagine what those shapes might be. How much time do we spend stuck in traffic? So spend that travel time making up new endings to favorite stories, or take a favorite song and add some new lyrics to the tune. When you're home, take blankets and recycled boxes and build a fort together. The most important advice is ask your kids for their ideas and build upon them. So, for example, you've got some fabric scraps and a pillowcase. How could that be a costume? And what might that character do in a story? Or how could a piece of cardboard be transformed into a bridge over a puddle and create a whole story around that scene? The main point is to help children put their imaginations into action. They've got the ideas. They've got robust imaginations. Honor them, listen to them, and weave it into daily routines.
I really appreciate that because I think sometimes we underestimate how important it is that children think of themselves as creative from a very early age on. I think of it as sort of part of our personal health profile. And I learned recently, like your gut microbiome, there's a lot about your gut microbiome that's really dictated by the first 1,000 days of your life. And I'm like going to geek out later on. And I wonder, at what age do you maybe begin to solidify a definition of yourself as a creative being or not? And I think sometimes you were saying we put the bar too high in terms of who gets to call themselves creative. I am by no means a skillful artist, but my wife and I enjoy watercolor painting just for fun. We have a holiday tradition where we always hand make cards. And is it something that belongs in a museum? No. It's important to us. Is it fun? Yes. And is it good for us as a family? Absolutely. And I think about just that wellness benefit of taking a little bit of time to engage the creative self, and how, again, that's, as I said, I feel like it's good for me personally and for my relationships. So I wonder too, is that a message that's useful for parents to be thinking about too? Is like creativity is something that is great for us as a family system. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Oh, absolutely. I loved everything you said and the examples that you provided. So when you talked about hand-created cards, there is something so incredibly special about that because you're putting a bit of yourself on that piece of paper, and it could be abstract art, a blend of colors. You can play around with a simple crayon watercolor resist, right? Where you do some just rough sketching, scribbling with crayon, and then you lay the watercolor on top and the wax resists it. So it's always rather magical and unexpected. And when you send that card it's like you're really reaching out and touching that person that you sent it to. A real treasure. People will not throw away the handmade card, I can guarantee you. And I've also heard of other ways that families can spread the joy to people they don't know. So you can take those same kind of small little notes or postcard-sized pieces of artwork that the family makes and just slip them inside a shopping cart or leave them in a little plastic bag along a walking trail as just little pieces of beautiful kindness that you leave for someone that you don't know. And kids will get this sense of we are a broader community and we are reaching out and making people smile, even if we don't know them or can't see that smile. So I love that. And you're absolutely right, it is tied to wellness. The act of making pieces of art really does bring joy to people and a sense of pride. I also want to point out you're talking about this bar that people might have around creativity and some judgment if I'm a good enough artist. And we suggest you just let all of that judgment just melt away and disappear. And think about your creative superpowers in many different areas. The first comes to mind is the arts, whether that's visual arts or song or dance. But also remember, there's so many other ways we're creative. So ask yourself, where is my creative superpower? Is it the way I design festive meals or decorate, whether it's around the holidays or an everyday decoration? Is it the way I greet people with a smile and always have a story to tell? Great storytelling is another act of great creativity. Is it the way I garden? Whether it's something very structured and planned by the height and the colors and the seasons they'll bloom, or something that's a bit more naturally tossed together in a very free-form, almost wildflowery collection. Those are all ways that we apply our creative ideas to our everyday living environment.
Love the garden example, Cheri. This past summer, got rid of the front lawn, completely naturalized it, a lot of local plants and flowers, and it became like a conversation piece with neighbors. Yet again, like the creative act leading to community. I love that. I'm thinking too, though, part of that was there were a few of us that were like swapping some plants. So it was accessible, it was easy. And your example with having the crayon and the watercolor, like what makes that kind of experiment a little bit easier for us is we actually don't put kind of those creative tools away. Like we keep them in view. And it was a different podcast that I was listening to, and they were talking about the advantage of when you go grocery shopping and you buy vegetables, unless it absolutely has to be refrigerated, keep it out on the counter because it's going to be front of mind to cook that vegetable. So you're not like wasting eggplant that you forgot was in the back of the fridge.
Hi, folks. We'll get back to our conversation in just a moment. I want to talk a bit more about newlight.io, the AI FERPA compliant, that's our federal guidelines around privacy of student data, platform making personalized student support a breeze. You know, student privacy is huge in our schools, and Newlight is big on privacy as well. It was one of the first questions I asked the co-founder, Jose, about. There are a few AI systems out there that meet the requirements to being FERPA compliant, and Newlight does just that. Newlight's IntelliTier platform is more than just a data collection tool. It's an AI-powered assistant that has been trained to truly understand the MTSS framework, student context, and school-specific resources. Developed by a team with both social, emotional, and behavioral needs in mind, and with plans to extend into academic support soon. Studies show effective MTSS and SEL implementations can boost attendance, improve grades, and increase graduation rates. Yet many schools struggle with the complexities of gathering data and turning that data into actionable items within the MTSS process. Newlight's IntelliTier platform makes it easy with simple, fast data collection, asynchronous collaboration across the MTSS team, and actionable insight that educators can implement and document their success with. Plus, New Light is advised by seasoned educators and administrators, so they understand your everyday classroom challenges. You have to try it out for yourself. So head over to newlight.io to give it a try for free. That's NEULIGHT.io. Thank you to New Light for taking this on, and a proud sponsor of the Shifting Schools community.
I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on what we can do with our spaces just to almost make a little bit of a reminder to make, to play, to do. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. And I think this tip is equally as relevant for the classroom as the home environment. So one of the ways that we can encourage children to engage in self-expression when an idea strikes them is to take away a permission barrier. In the classroom, if there are open shelves that have art supplies and students know they can retrieve those supplies and they can put them back, and actually helps them to build that sense of responsibility. You return that watercolor tray, wipe down, clean out for the next person to use it. You put the markers back in the bin where the markers belong, the crayons. Now, obviously, if there's very sharp pointed scissors and young kids, you don't want to, leave anything dangerous. You want that activity to be closely supervised. But the majority of art experiences can really be child directed and child supervised. In the home kitchen, and I do actually recommend the kitchen because it's such a hub of activity, maybe a bottom drawer instead. Everybody seems to have a junk drawer in their bottom drawer. Turn that into an art supply drawer with the paper and the marker, the washable markers, so it's risk-free. They can just wipe off if they go into unexpected places. Or it's really easy to buy those plastic bins. Some of them stack and come on wheels, so it's not a great big expensive piece of equipment. It's just something you can wheel into the corner of the kitchen. Then an adult might be cooking or doing something in another part of the room. Kids can literally self-serve their art materials and take responsibility for that cleanup. Keep those paper scraps that are the treasures for the next project. Use torn paper and tape. If it's something where the glue and scissors might be a more together project if they're really young and you want supervision there. But even the youngest kids can deal with torn paper and tape in a very mess-free way.
Love that advice. And again, making it accessible, I think just makes it much more likely that somebody's going to pick up those resources and play with them. Cheri, at the time of us recording this, we're not too far from holiday season. And I've always found that for me, this is just a personal thing, but I always find it's like the lead up to the holiday season is almost even better than the holiday itself. So this year, my family have decided in lieu of gifts, we're doing a spin-off on Secret Santa where we're doing something that we're calling Snackmas. And each house is responsible for somebody else's house. And you're going to create a bespoke basket of snacks that you've personally thought this is going to be great for the people that live in that house, including the dog or cat who lives there too. And we've just been having so much fun talking about it, right? So it's building the anticipation. And I'm wondering, in the build up to Crayola Creativity Week, can you think of something that either a classroom or a family might do in the weeks leading up to it that there might be a child who feels a little anxious about the event? I find it's a mix of anxiety and excitement, right? If it's their first Crayola Creativity Week, does something come to mind that you would propose, hey, maybe just do this a few weeks out or a few days before even?
Yeah, I have to first compliment you on that beautiful creative snack exchange idea. I love it. And back decades ago, there was a lot of work put into cookie exchanges where I hear that people would spend a lot of time baking. You got the essence of the community and the exchange part without standing in front of a hot oven for hours. So I love that. It's an easier way to get all that good sharing spirit. So you're absolutely right that when we think about a holiday time and maybe broader families gathering and maybe some relatives the kids don't know that well, and All of that feels new. And really, the kinds of experiences that we've been talking about help kids get a sense of mastery or control over their own emotions. Um, Drawing what you're afraid of, or drawing a scene that shows what you anticipate as an experience, or making up a story about a relative who came for the holidays. These are all great ways to express ideas and to think about the what ifs, right? And build that confidence. And it's not just kids who feel it. Adults feel a great deal of stress at this time. And it can be really therapeutic to pull yourself out of that for prepare mode and just spend some time sketching a scene that you wish would happen there, or writing a poem about, we have a fun activity. We call them erasure poems. And so you write a poem about what people think of you or what you anticipate, and then you go in and you erase the parts that you don't want to have happen, or that aren't true. And it's really fun and gives you a sense of mastery over, yes, I do have something to say about what I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks.
I love that. And I think, again, it's what you're suggesting is I'm not setting aside an hour. It might even be something that I do in 5 minutes. That's just like a nice reset, catch my breath. There's a reason that adult coloring books have become so wildly popular. And I think it is because it's a very accessible, time light thing that you can do just to regulate. You're a nationally recognized leader in child development. You're a big advocate, of course, for creativity, the influence that it has, not just on a child's future, but I feel like society-wise, culture-wise, when we're in an environment where lots of folks around us value it's huge. And I know that right now we have to be thinking about really cultivating problem solvers. We want folks who are very innovative. And it seems like encouraging creative mindsets and behaviors in children, this is something that's at the core of Crayola. What are some behaviors that you want teachers or that caring adult, that trusted adult in a child's life to be thinking about and encouraging that really mirrors that commitment that Crayola has?
Thank you for asking. This is such an important question. I want to start by unpacking some of the myths and misunderstandings about creativity, because I think it opens the door for those behaviors we want to reinforce. For example, one of the myths is that many adults think that creativity is something that a lucky few people were born with, and you either you got it, or you don't. And that is not true. Creativity is a skill that can be taught and must be nurtured. So parents and teachers can help boost kids' creative mindsets by listening to the children's ideas. Ask them for their suggestions on how to solve problems or an innovative approach to something, and honor their ideas by trying it out. The other thing that's super important is to demonstrate your own curiosity and sense of wonder. When children think that adults have it all figured out, it can be a bit intimidating. When we show that we don't know all the answers and that we are open to fresh new ideas, that opens that door for the child to be really the problem solver and the innovator and the hero in figuring something out that benefits the entire family or classroom. Another myth is when people think that creativity is only relevant for the arts or for kids who might grow into careers in the arts. And that is not true. In fact, creativity is one of the skills that employers continuously, every employment survey shows that employers are looking for creativity when they hire, and that creativity is used in every profession. Now, I mentioned when I described the Creativity Week schedule and themes that we have a relationship with NASA. And the reason that NASA developed a space agreement with Crayola so that it's a long-term commitment where we work together on many programs, Creativity Week and our monthly programs, because they truly believe we need creative mindsets in every position in every career. But what they point out at NASA is that for every astronaut that goes up, there are 1,000 people who need to be creative down here on Earth making that mission happen. And they use so many different fields of science and so many different specialists. But the one thing they all have in common, they're creative. So I'd like to share with you what I call the 5 behaviors that support creativity. And not only do we want to encourage these in children, but the best way is to embrace them and be a role model for them as an adult. The first, coming up with unique ideas and new ways of doing things, even if we're not sure they're going to work out. So be a risk taker, but just keep generating new ways, new ideas. Number 2, keep an open mind. And part of what's implied here is that other people are going to suggest ideas that maybe you didn't think of or you're not that fond of, but be open to it, right? Because they might have a perfect solution, or together your ideas blend into that innovation. The third is always be considering new possibilities. Just because you think you have a solution doesn't mean there isn't a better one next door to it or coming down the path. So new possibilities. And the fourth one is seeking new experiences. It is a little scary if you haven't done something before, but embrace it, seek it. That's where the learning happens. The strongest intersection of these new ideas comes when it is a new experience and a new problem you face. And the fifth of these 5 behaviors is my favorite. Be ever curious. Wonder why, ask what if, and showcase your curiosity to the kids in your life.
I love that, Cheri. That really resonates with me. And I think I also want to make sure I balance that because I'm a huge advocate for curiosity too. And I think sometimes people will hear us say that, they believe it, they get the passion behind it. But then it's also okay, but practically, how do I do this? And something that I think is like really cool that Crayola has done for Creativity Week is if you go to the website, and of course we're linking to it in the show notes, you have the standards that this event aligns to, not just for the US, but for many countries. I don't know that I've seen another company, another organization lay that out so accessibly for so many different educators around the world. So I think the piece of you can do these really aspirational things that matter, I would argue, more than ever. And also in terms of marrying it with the practical, getting organized, the reality that sometimes in education, you have to have a rationale for why you're doing this. It's right there. It's free. It's easy to download PDF. So I really love that Crayola, I think, is thinking big and practical at the same time, which is something every educator has to do. So it really does feel like you had educators in mind with this to make it as accessible for them as possible.
I am an educator, and so I know the pressure that we're all under to say, this sounds like a great idea, but I have to teach what's in the standards. I have to show that this is a good use of time. So you're right. We have the standards alignment for 15 different countries. And I've had teachers say, it is so much fun to dance around in that section of the website and see what are the standards in the UK and in China and in Mexico. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think that comparison is very informative. And then lastly, I'll mention too, under content and resources, you do also have very specific, just additional supports for parents and caregivers. And the theme, again, is accessible, not a burden. Many of them, we are just talking about almost like microdoses of creativity. You have these very short lyrical learning videos. So it's not somebody who's going to have to give up hours and hours to figure this out. It really is very easy, I think, for a family to engage and get involved in this learning. So clearly, yep, you had that educator perspective and hat on. And two, I think like you're really understanding families are also super busy, right?
Absolutely. And we have over a dozen nonprofit education association partners from the National Art Education Association and the School Librarian Association. All of our partners can share a taste of their content in our content area. And so it's a great way for you to know about other education resources. You can sign up, opt in to get newsletters, communications from them, but also explore a range of content that you might not have known is available for free.
Yeah, that's incredible. And again, we started this conversation with you reminding folks the event is completely free. They don't necessarily need to go out and get all of these things. So if you are looking for a great, accessible way to engage young folks, families, yourself with a good dose of creativity, this is a really great event. I'm so happy that we had time to talk about it, to hopefully pique folks' curiosity in getting involved. I know that Crayola also has a really dynamic Instagram. Like, it's fun to follow what they have. Cheri, for a listener who also just they want to keep up with other events, because as you mentioned, this is like one of many things. Crayola is very busy. Is there any other place you would say, hey, go to this space just to
So,
keep us in mind with what's maybe coming up?
yeah. So I would suggest you visit the Crayola Learning YouTube channel. We have monthly programs and we feature them all there. So it's a wonderful living, breathing library. We do monthly read-along, draw-alongs that feature fabulous children's literature. We do art of learning programs that cover all sorts of topics. And then there's an art demonstration so you can bring those ideas to life. We have creative classroom and creative breaks, those short little pieces that you can share with your kids to help them decompress and refresh and build their mindfulness. The other thing, I know we were talking a lot about the benefits of Creativity Week, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that one of the other really special features is there are giveaways, daily prizes. We have such generous partners. You can win a Martin guitar. There are a dozen of them being given away. And we have a relationship with Blue Origin's Club of the Future and the Kennedy Space Center and Space for All. A dozen teachers are going to win an all expense paid trip to the Kennedy Space Center to learn more about NASA and space exploration and be treated as VIPs on the Space Coast. You can win a Walmart Teachers Lounge makeover. You can win a listening library from Audible, telescopes for your classroom. There are so many prizes. And of course, when you register, you get a chance to win. But when you post your children's artwork with the on social with the hashtag Crayola Creativity Week, you get extra chances of winning.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you shared all of that. I'm an avid reader, so I might ask you just one last question in closing. As a super reader, and I always was from childhood, the read along, draw along, I've never heard of this before, and it sounds like exactly the kind of thing. I love it now, but I definitely, like, younger me would have totally been into it. Can you just say a little bit more about what that is? Because I'm so curious.
So we are very fortunate. We have wonderful relationships with publishers who bring us outstanding literature, books that teachers really do want their students to become familiar with. The author reads the book and the illustrator demonstrates the art techniques and encourages children to express their own feelings and do a build off the illustrations in the book. And when you go to Crayola Learning and scroll through the current as well as the archived content, you won't believe the power of these books, the stories they tell, how they honor inclusion in all different types of families and individual identity. I can't do justice to all the themes, but they're heavily focused on social and emotional learning and building a sense of community in classrooms.
Love it. As soon as we get off this call, I know exactly where on the internet I am headed. Cheri, thank you so much for sharing more about this important event. We hope, listeners, it's inspired you to register. Cheri, you mentioned actually registration is open, I think, almost all the way until the event itself. So again, head over to the show notes, learn more about this week's phenomenal guest, and also get yourself and your class, and maybe your family too, excited about this upcoming week to celebrate all things creativity. Thank you so much for your time today, Cheri.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey there, dedicated listener. If you've made it this far, we know you're passionate about shifting the way education works, and Tricia and I appreciate you. If you loved what you heard today, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to rate and review Shifting Schools wherever you listen to podcasts. Those ratings help us reach even more educators just like you. And if you know someone who could benefit from these conversations, please share this episode with them. Just one person. Think of the impact we can make together. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter for even more great content. And if you haven't already, join us at Camp Shifting Schools, where the conversations keep going long after the podcasts end. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and thank you for being part of Shifting Schools.